Today, we're going to talk about something that Matthew loves to make fun of me about. Any guesses about what that might be, Matthew?
So many things.
Come on, take a shot. What do you think?
Oh, it's got to be FOMO. No, something. I don't know. What is it?
FOMO. What could it be? All right. It's actually about the status of my CPA, my status of my, ability to practice in the profession. You love to give me a hard time about that, don't you?
I do like to point out to people that you let yours lapse, yes, and you don't give a crap.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what's going on with the CPA, why I let mine go, why Matthew has not, what's happening in the world around the CPA and some strange things and big fines and things happening out there. What our thoughts about, how it plays in the industry. All that here on Drink While You Think, my vacation version of Drink While You Think. As you can see, for those watching along, our weekly happy hour conversation between a couple of guys who are building their accounting firm in really weird ways. I'm your host, Kenji. He's our other host, Matthew. I don't believe we have a sponsor this week, Matthew.
Well, I'm drinking Donnie's beer again, so he can have another sponsorship if you want. But that's just a friend of mine that doing that. But he did this same. I think these are the same similar kits you use, but he did the honey hazy number 3.
Oh,
so this was his April 16th brew. So I let it age a little bit. So we'll see how it goes.
Good for Donnie. He's brewing more than I am these days. I have not been keeping up with my brewing as much as I should have. That sounds like a beer I'd like. Thanks, Donnie. I'm going with this is the Laid Back Blonde Ale from Palisade Brewing Company. Beer that makes you smile. Who doesn't like to smile? Palisade is a little town in Colorado, not too far from where I am here. I'm at my parents' home in Colorado with our family for the 4th of July. Palisade's a great little town nearby that has great produce, amazing peaches. So cheers, man.
Cheers, man.
Well, that's tasty. That is tasty. How's Donnie's? Pretty good? First sip, pretty solid?
I'm trying to, it's definitely like your kind of beer, like a hazy IPA.
Hazy IPA.
I can't get I don't get the honey hint. Maybe my palate's not very sophisticated.
That's an unusual, I will say that's an unusual one. I've never heard honey kind of in there in the hazy IPA. So it's not usually a flavor, but who knows? Okay. Yeah, this is good on the first hit. We'll come back and finish things off and rate these in a little bit. Why have you kept your CPA active, Matthew? There's a lot of work. I mean, right? You had to do a lot to kind of keep it active.
Man, it took me forever to pass that damn thing. I don't know. I guess I'm still hedging on you. Maybe I'll need it as a fallback, as a
Things
career.
Don't work out at Acuity.
Things don't work out at Acuity. Maybe I need it as a fallback, but we're supposed to get together at 8. Yeah, maybe it's a fallback thing. Maybe I don't know. It's a hedge. It's a hedge on Acuity right there.
A hedge on Acuity. Come on, man. I would say, as I've asked people about it, I think your first knee-jerk reaction, I understand your second reaction about if things don't work out. You and I constantly worry about things not working out at Acuity. It's a day-by-day situation. I think I hear people talk about, like, listen, this took me a lot of damn time and effort to get. I mean, even people who pass it the first time, unlike the two of us who did not pass it the first time or the second, maybe the third. I can't remember. It's been a while.
Not me.
Fourth time was the charm.
No.
5, 6 times.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. Do you not hear? I never told you the story about my CPA exam. So I decided not to study. I decided not to study for it, and decided if I passed it, then that was the career I was supposed to have. So I just took the 2 days off. Remember, because it was back in the day. Before you had to schedule it, you would go and then all your friends would be there at the convention center in whatever city in Texas for me. And you would sit there for 2 days. You had 2 days off and I figured if I knew the stuff, I should pass it. Right. And then, sure enough, a couple years in, I had enough knowledge where I could pass it. So
So you never took any Becker courses or anything like that?
Well, on my 5th time, I passed 3 sections. And before that, I had passed sections before, but you remember you have to pass 2 and you got 50s on the others.
Yeah.
I never got below a 50, but I never passed 2 before that. But the 5th time I took it, I had lots of crazy times in there. I broke my leg for one of those times, so I had to miss the exam, but I count it because I have 6 cards. So I didn't technically take it 6 times, but I took it 5 times, I guess. So the 4th time I took it, which was the 5th time I had a card for it, I passed 3 sections. And then the next time my boss was like, you need to pass this thing. So I took one of those weekend study classes where it's like a 2-day crash course.
Yeah.
So I took a 2-day crash course. It was the easiest part to study for was law at the time, right? And so I took the 2-day course and then I passed it fine. So if you study, you can pass that test. If you don't, it's not as, I mean, that was like karma though, that I should be a CPA.
It feels like we're having the conversations we had with ourselves about studying are the ones we sound like we're having with our kids right now. Like, are the opposite. Sorry.
Oh yeah. That
you need to study. You actually
probably shouldn't tell my kids that story.
Yeah. Don't worry. I don't think they listen to Drink While You Think. This would be the last place our kids would ever want to spend time hearing more of us going on about things. So I think we're safe. But yeah, I think I hear a lot. I get it a lot. We all spend a lot of time, sometimes 5, 6 times taking. I think it was 4. Between you and I, we're like double digits number of times it took 2 founders of a decent sized accounting firm to get through the exam. But I hear people say, "Hey, I worked hard at it. I don't want to let it go now." But it's hard. I find it now that we're outside of traditional public accounting. It's the CPE requirements are difficult. I mean, they're difficult to keep up with. Inside of especially Big Four, or I think larger public accounting. I mean, you had CPE stuff coming out the ears.
Yeah, I mean, I taught for so long in Big Four, right? So like
I did too.
Big 6, Big 4. So I taught forever. So I always had like way too many hours, right? Because I was a trainer. But yeah, since then it's not as fun to keep up. So
I kept finding
ever since I joined you, it's been a slog, dude.
I know it. But something about like when we go to conferences, apparently we're not going into sessions, getting our CPE. That's probably my bad. You mentioned me having my FOMO earlier. Yeah, I'm pulling you off into other things, and we're not going in and getting our CPE hours when we're inside of conferences. So that's probably on me.
I mean, yours has been lapsed for over a decade.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, and my issue with it was I was finding myself as we were building up the firm and all things we're doing, I'd get to the end of the year. And in Georgia, we're calendar year. And so I would sit there either sometimes using visiting family and things over the holidays. I would be on a plane flight or crash coursing like on December the 31st, trying to cram hours into online. I'm like, I wasn't learning anything. I mean, it's just like, this is just silly. And I felt worse about that, of like slamming in a bunch of hours right at the end of the year, trying to stay compliant. I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. Like, it doesn't feel honorable in the work. I'm like, if I'm doing this every year, and if I'm not going to change my ways of like actually getting on top of it, you know what? I should just try to go inactive. And so I actually felt better about it. And then kind of over the time, I felt even better and better about it. Like, okay, I'm not going back in public, clearly, but I don't know. That was at least my justification for it.
It was definitely pre-earmark.
Yes, pre-earmark. Yes, Blake. Just know that, Blake. Pre-earmark.
Pre-earmark. It really pre-elephant. It's hard. Pre-earmark. It's hard. Yeah.
There have been friends of ours who've been trying to make this process easier for at least the past 5, 6 years, and so that may have saved me. That may have kept me active had you all been around doing that. Where do you think, as a whole, where do you think the CPA stands in importance to the profession as a whole?
It's kind of crazy. I think it's helpful as a whole to the profession, but to credentialize it, I mean, I think when we talk about like the most trusted professions, it's like clergy, then CPAs, right? And I think the brand CPA comes in there. I think people think CPA before they think accountant when they're thinking trust. But the weird thing I've found is like people don't distinguish between a CPA and accountant when it gets down to it.
Right.
They don't distinguish between any distinguishment. Like they don't understand what an EA is versus a CPA. They don't understand what a bookkeeper is versus a CFO or a CPA or a accountant or a controller. Like the buyers are relatively uneducated when it comes down to it at the end of the day. But I think generally, having said that, the CPA certification has really helped us as an industry, provide a kind of a trusted kind of brand for accountants in general.
Yeah.
It served accountants well.
Oh, it's an interesting take. I wasn't sure where you're going to go with that, but I can see that where you think about professions like medical professionals, lawyers.
Yeah, lawyers.
Those places.
Lawyers, the designations ain't doing anybody any favors over there.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all.
But there's collateral benefit for all people that go into accounting, I think, from the CPA designation and the trust that's bestowed there on that group.
I remember the last time I felt like it mattered for me, and there may have been years ago, but out when I was still doing CFO services. If you're going competitively against somebody else and you had a CPA in your designation, they did not. That gave a leg up. I remember interviewing back before when I left, public accounting and went to go work. That was a leg up. You could say, hey, I'm a CPA, right? You kind of stacked it on to like, here's the school I went to, my accounting degree. Here's where I worked in public. I am a CPA. And you kind of had all those things. And, it would start in a competitive situation where weeding things out, probably more as you were kind of going into controller or CFO roles, right? Depending on the situation. But for a long time, I don't think it has not for me, like it's mattered much at all for me professionally. And so it does make me question about what's the value of it. I think you're right. There's a brand perspective that people think about. CPA is meaningful. It does engender trust. But you said it, you followed that up really well with people still don't, it's an uneducated buyer. They know the name CPA, right? But they don't understand what it is or what it means. It's almost like I think about prospective clients when they talk to us and they say, hey, I want GAAP financials, right? And we hear clients say things like that and they don't understand actually what GAAP is. They just know, or accrual based or GAAP, and they're kind of throwing out lingo that they've heard. Like people will say, oh, GAAP means that means the financials are better or more accurate, which it's not exactly what that means, right? That is a different way or type of accounting for things. So you hear people say that and you go, well, if you want truly GAAP financials, do you have any idea what that's going to cost you? I mean, that's you can, and you might need it for certain situations, but like most people don't really understand what that means. I think the CPA can be similar like that. Sure, I want a CPA to do it, but I don't know. I feel like it's diminishing in value in our profession. I think the brand is still there. I don't know how often the AICPA or others go out there and make changes to, what the requirements are. Because to me, the requirements have stayed fairly, the test has changed since you and I took it. In terms of how you can take it, you no longer have to kind of go in those big convention centers and take them amongst a bunch of people there. You can take it at different time periods. But the thing I think also the 150 hours requirements, very rigorous, that you must have that college credits. I still think there's the supervisory component. I actually saw something interesting. Do you know there's certain states have a minimum age requirement to be a CPA?
Oh, I did not know that.
It's kind of wild. I think it's like New York and Missouri. You have to at least be 21. Other states you can be younger.
Yeah, you have to do that because they know you're gonna be once you're a CPA. They know you're gonna have to drink heavily. So. Is that the rationale?
I guess New York's getting ahead of that. Like we know what's going to happen here. You're going to have some of this kind of in place. But I guess also the ethics component, right? This tends to, and this is where we'll kind of get in the kind of more current status. Your old firm, like I said, your old firm, right? As if you've been associated with Ernst & Young in a long time, got beat down with a huge fine, $100 million, right? Is that what it was?
$100 million, something like that.
Yeah. $100 million were apparently, were they helping the staff, or at least cheat on the ethics portion of the CPA exam, or just kind of allowing it to?
What I suspect happened was, and I heard this happening at other firms too. I think I think this may have happened while I was there, but people had the answers to the ethics part of the CPA exam.
Yeah.
And I don't remember where I was, if I was at, and I don't remember where I was at the time, but I remember somebody saying, like, somebody offering the answers to us. And I think this was, and I don't remember, or I remember hearing about it somewhere, that somebody was offering answers, and I was like, I'm good. Like, it's an open book thing. Like, it's the weird thing about the ethics part. It's like an open note, open book thing. So you don't need somebody to give you the answers. Like, you just have to do the work to look it up. And I was always one to be a rule follower, So I didn't do that, but I think I was aware of this happening somewhere. I can't remember.
I think that's been fairly widely known, because again, it is, for those who are unaware, as Matthew mentioned, it's open book. I think it can be taken anywhere from like a year to 2 years after you've passed the 4 parts of the exam. So it's a separate component. You're taking it not in historically an exam center. You're just doing it wherever, and you have to just, again, it's not like you're being supervised when you take it. It's open book.
Well, so ethics. It is an ethics test. Like, so
exactly. So, and they're already giving you as much help as possible. Like, here, take it unsupervised, and here, take it, open book. But then at that point, I think people clearly took it a little too far. But this was fairly, I feel like you're right. It's been years since I've been in public, but this was fairly widely known that people would pass this stuff around.
Yeah, I'm surprised only E&Y got hit with this.
I am too.
Because it seems like it was broader than EY in the Big Four to me. But
yeah,
I mean, we're going back in the Wayback Machine, 15 years at least for us, 20 years for you maybe. But because I was in public longer, that was not a crack at his age.
That's where I thought you were going to. But I asked the question to start this whole thing off. Where are you going to make fun of me that I'm older than you? I thought you were going to go there. But
oh no,
I knew it'd come back.
I kind of worn that one out. Plus, it's like you're months older than me too. So at some point.
Hey, as the older we get, the percentage I'm older than you gets smaller and smaller. It shrinks.
Yeah, but that didn't surprise me that they got fined 100 million. That's awesome. But maybe they'll stop or crack down on that stuff. But just like everything else, it's like, I guess they're trying to make a statement and I don't know if they're trying to make the news or trying to make a statement, but
the surprise part to me was, one, they finally jumped in and enforced it, and against one firm. You would have thought this would have been a little more sweeping, and they would have hit a bunch of the firms and said, hey, we're going to take our pound of flesh from a whole bunch of different firms out there. I do think this was something that was fairly widely spread, but
maybe it helps the budget though at AICPA. Like, maybe that gets
next year's AICPA Engage is going to be awesome. It's got that extra E&Y fine money in there.
You're going to call it the EY happy hour upgrade.
When it's at the Bellagio next year and not the Aria, we'll know that the E&Y dollars hit
where they went to work.
That's right. What would you do? Okay, I like that you mentioned that the CPA does have a very positive brand impact for us as accountants. It has been good for the profession. Are there any things that come top of mind to you that you would change about the exam or the test or any way they do it? Do you think makes it more relevant and more something that really does affect more the overall profession? Because right now it feels like, hey, if you want to practice audit in one of a larger firm, you need to take it. But otherwise, it kind of feels like, is it really that important? What would you do to make it more relevant as a whole?
For sure, I think the CPA broad designation is fine, but I think what makes more sense and always has made more sense to me, there at a minimum should have been 2 different CPA exams, tax or audit.
Yeah.
To think that most of us could do tax and audit at a high level, I mean, other than the simplest clients, like, you can't do. So I think like a CPA audit, a CPA tax, a CPA, and you can call them all CPAs, it's fine. A CPA industry, and then if we're going to go down this path where technology is going to be a big deal, we got to think about like a CPA automation almost, but I'm not sure that that's right or that feels right. That's the one I'm least comfortable with. I know there's a CMA, but I've always thought that was more for manufacturers. And I
Very,
think
very focused toward manufacturing. Yeah,
and I don't think the CPA should let that one go, the industry folks. Like I think there should be a CPA industry, internal reporting and stuff like that. It's very similar to audit. Maybe it's audit and accounting, CPA audit and CPA tax, but I think that at least 2 designations is long overdue.
Yeah.
I don't mind having even some like surface level tax info on there, but like to be a tax CPA, you should have deep tax knowledge in either corporate or individual tax, right? You should, partnership, corporate, like everything's getting so nuanced, like not having this sub specialty. It just seems not appropriate. But
well, what about this? So as you're saying that, what about this may get too complicated, but you said, okay, you take the CPA exam and you have holding the technology piece aside. I agree. I think that's a little tricky. There's something to that, but I can't wrap my head around that piece yet either. But if you said, okay, the CPA designation, one side is a firm you're going to work in one of the firms, and there's a tax track and there's an audit track, just like you mentioned, right? Those are very distinct. Maybe somebody gets crazy and wants to do both, right? Great. Tack one on it. You're a CPA and you have both audit and tax, but you're right. But that's underneath a firm, CPA firm designation. Then if you have the second one of CPA industry, right? And then you could maybe have one that was really for public companies and one for private companies. You go work internally in a public company. Those reporting requirements are unbelievable. Like, right, we have a lot of friends who work in public companies, and the things they're jumping through for SEC reporting and really need to know that's so technical and very challenging. And it's very different cadence than just kind of coming in and, saying something on a private company side is fairly different. But I don't know, maybe that's a path to look at. But
I think it even matters for like the CPE I can get, like, what does it matter if I do tax CPE?
Right.
Like to my, like, what does that help for my clients? Like, how does that help me professionally if I do a 20-hour tax CPE thing, like just me and my own personal taxes, right? Like, I guess, like I'm not doing tax returns or stuff like that. But I mean, I think that would inform kind of the CPE too, right?
Right.
Like we have the CPE tracks right now. You can, like, there's already natural tracks people go, like you have to get so many accounting hours. Like tax people shouldn't need to get so many accounting hours. Like
they shouldn't.
They should have to get freaking technical tax stuff, right? Like they should be up on all the things. So
and certain things you go to that are there's probably things that engage. Now, granted, they break out a lot of different tracks, but I think the states, the societies, when they do their CP, a lot of it is geared toward, I know teams of people from public companies who go and kind of get some of their CPE, or they usually work with their audit firms, like to bring in CPE and things like that. They're very specialized for them. But we've had friends of ours who work in big companies. I'm like, oh, you should come to XeroCon, right? You should come to something just to see what that's like. And I think they'd enjoy it because they're just fun to go to. But those are all, they need really deep technical, what are the latest pronouncements coming out? And I got to dig in deep on that. And that's not part of what we're going through at XeroCon, right? You never know though. Someone say, hey, I want to find out about lease accounting or rev rec or something kind of happening there. That's a very different, our friend Marty Penny, who runs technical accounting for Coca-Cola, right? Things he's got to go and look at, and people like that, and his wife, Linda, it's very different, but it's still part of our overall profession. And likewise, if I knew there was CPE I could get for industry for private companies, I'd be all over that. That's probably what we're kind of doing almost today when we think about going to XeroCon or going to, QuickBooks Connect, is probably really what those tracks are kind of more like. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know if the ASCPA wants to take our advice here, but I agree. I think I'd like to see it certainly more relevant, something that would attract more young people, more people to the profession as a whole. But I mean, really, it's so niche right now going into just audit and maybe tax. Like, you need that designation is a fairly small percentage overall of the professionals who work in the space.
I agree. And I think it's not with technology, it's getting worse, not better. There are less generalists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even in the cloud accounting world, like we're seeing like us like whittled down our client base to like specific niches, just ecom, just SaaS tech, right?
Yeah.
When I was on a call today with several phone numbers, there's like one of them just does real estate and construction. That's it. Like that's all they do. like the CPE, like they don't need tax, they don't need audit, they need real estate and construction accounting, right? Like that's all they need. Like, and I think if the ASCPA doesn't acknowledge that, yeah, it's tricky because at the CPA, when you get your designation, you know it's early in your career, so maybe it does need to stay broad, but like maybe there needs to be some follow-ons, you know, like maybe there needs to be a broad one, and then there needs to be an audit subspecialty you can get, or a tax subspecialty you can get, or a, you know, I don't know.
I guess I'll state that I am okay with it being a high bar. I'm okay with the fact that you and I had to grind and took a lot of times to get through it. I don't mind it having a high bar as long as it's fair and equitable to all people who are interested. I just don't think that after all that work, it just doesn't have any value to me any longer in the space, which is kind of a bummer. And I want to make sure too that, again, that the high bars that we set, the high standards that are important in keeping it a trusted brand, are also equitable and fair to, you know, folks who can go to school and get for 150 hours a piece, right? I mean, I'd be fine. I mean, sometimes I think that may be too high of a bar. I'm not crazy about the 150 hours requirement, but I don't know. Lots of things there. It got me thinking about all this though, as we were thinking about.
You didn't get the 150 hours. I didn't get the 150 hours.
100. We were 144. I remember mine.
Oh, yeah. See, I didn't get. I was the last year that you didn't have to have the 150 hours.
I was very close already. I had to do summer school 1 year just to get them, but it was close. Like you and I were both right around the time when they started moving to master's programs, right, and pushing to 150 hours. And typically for most people, that means an extra year of school. And I didn't want to have my parents pay for an extra year tuition for that, because you and I saw that when we went and worked in public, the people who had the master's versus the bachelor's degrees, they got like an extra $1,000 or $2,000 in salary or something like this.
It was $1,000. I took a $1,000 pay cut to skip my master's program and to start immediately
for a full year. Exactly. I mean, come on, that makes no sense. That makes no sense.
But
so you and I just missed that one. I'll tell you this to be clear: had that been in effect when I would have been there, I would not be an accountant today. There's no way I would have done the 5 years. No way. Yeah. Anyway, all right. I got to get back to like vacationing here, like vacation mode. There's people playing golf out here. I feel like I should be doing that, or fishing. Certainly doing more. So let's rate some beers. While I pull mine up, tell me what you're feeling there on.
I'm going 4.5 on the honey hazy.
Did the honey, as you drank more of it, did the honey come through?
Yeah, it did. It kind of, it was a little sweet. It didn't taste like honey, but it was a little sweet, and it smoothed it out over time. It was kind of nice. And I'm not a big hazy.
Yeah,
it's good.
Well, but did you feel it's very bitter? It's kind of more fruity and sweet than bitter.
Yeah.
That means he did a great job with it. I'm not surprised. That means he did a good job with it. All right, I'm gonna rate the laid back blonde from Palisade Brewing here. Once again, shout out to the folks in Palisade. If you're ever in Colorado, get some of them Palisade peaches. I promise you're gonna love them. This was great. I enjoyed it. I'm certainly in the right space to enjoy it. Things are gonna get an automatic bump up here just because when you're in Colorado drinking Colorado beer.
On vacation.
Man, on vacation. I'm gonna go 4.25. Normally I'd say this wouldn't be my beer choice, but it's a great kind of easy drinking one here. After we just did a long 30-mile bike ride down from the city of Aspen, just kind of came in, and this just kind of hits the spot right now. So feeling pretty good about this. But I'm curious of what other people think about the CPA. I'd love to hear some feedback, some thoughts from listeners out there, why you did it, why you're not doing it, what you think about it, what you think could change. Drop us some notes. Drop us some comments.
Or if you'd like to sponsor, just send us beer. We're short on beer now, so if you'd like to sponsor, just send us beer.
We are running short on beer, so please send it our way. Thanks for jumping on at a different time and letting me do this while I'm on vacation, because it still feels like vacation doing this. Cheers to you, man. And
cheers, man.
Thanks for everybody listening. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and we'll catch you next time here on Drink While You Think.
And I'll see you next week when you're back, Kenji.
Cheers, man.